We're live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Poultry Keepers 360 Live. We've got a fun show tonight, and we're going to jump right into it. But I want to ask you a question here. You know, and this is it's not unusual for this to happen. Trust me. So it's not a problem if you do. But have you ever decided which chicks you want to order for spring, and only to find out that they're already sold out? And it can really make you wonder. Did I wait too long, or is there something else going on? Well, tonight we're going to explain why certain breeds sell out fast, why it seems worse some years than others, and what you can do as a smart poultry keeper before spring ever arrives. So, Carrie, have you ever experienced uh, going to order something and it being out of stock?
Yes. That's why I raised my hand when you asked that question.
I
It's
uh,
so frustrating.
I I think we probably all have,
Yeah.
but it happens every year about this time, and folks, they're not scheming and hatching against you, so don't take it personal. Uh, but this time of year, they get so many orders that it's unbelievable, and you just kind of have to be patient with them. Um, Most folks think they just missed the window or order window or something, but in reality, that window was probably smaller than they realize. The system works the same way every year,
Hmm.
even though demand changes. And the breeds that are hot one year are not going to be hot the next year.
And
You know,
and from the business side, that part right there is a struggle
it is. It's hard.
because
It's hard to predict.
you know last year you're behind on this breed weeks, and people are like, "Hey, when are they coming?" So you hatch out and keep some for yourself to increase your flock so you can have more chicks or have more eggs, whichever one you're doing. And then something else is hot this year.
Well, and Carrie, that's something I want to talk about a little bit later in the differences and the similarities between hatcheries and between private breeders,
Hmm.
um, because there's some considerable differences. So let's talk about why. Um, whoop, I can't get anything to cooperate tonight, folks. I'm sorry. Let's talk about what makes a breed rare or hard to find. Well, some of it is popularity, some of it is marketing and word of mouth on the internet, in some of the poultry groups. So it varies from year to year. And this is one thing that Kerry was talking about. When you get involved with a hatchery, they're faced with some of the same things we're up against as private breeders. You know, they can have fertility issues, they can have hatchability issues, just like you and I can. So we kind of have to go slow and realize that they just can't double production overnight if if they're running low on a particular breed. Their incubators, their staff plays a role in it. Um, Even shipping schedules. And Kerry, I know this is something as a business owner that you struggle with sometimes is shipping schedules. Um, and when
Yeah.
you consider the number of chicks that hatcheries sell, I mean, hundreds of thousands, on up some of them into the millions,
Yep.
and that's a lot of balls to keep juggling up and down in the air. So,
I have seen um, hatch day videos, if you will, that different hatcheries have put out, and they have an enormous amount of people there sorting chicks straight
mhm,
into boxes. You
It's
know,
kind of like
they're
controlled chaos.
sorting orders. Yeah, they're sorting the orders as they take them out of the hatchers and fill them, and then they've got box trucks that they take to the post office to ship these things, and they literally fill them full. And it's a lot, but when they say, okay, well, we're comfortable saying that we're going to hatch out 500 chicks this year, so they go into their online system and they put 500 chicks. When they sell, and
Right.
until they get caught up, they're not comfortable selling more.
Well, they just don't have the capacity to do that.
Mm-mm.
Even as hard as they try, they just don't have the capacity a lot of times because most hatcheries, the more popular breeds that they sell a lot of chicks, they'll have more breeders, like your Cornish cross chicks or your sex link layer chicks.
Mhm.
They'll have much more numbers of breeders in those than they will, say, your Polish. But they may just have a handful of breeds. I know Murray McMurray lists a breed from England.
Mhm.
It's that breed that has the huge combs on them. Um, and they do sell them, but they only have 5 hens.
Yeah, so they can't sell them any.
So they can't sell many, and you got to get on them early because they will sell out for those in a heartbeat. Um, and one of the things that I learned early on about dealing with hatcheries is that those birds that are considered beginner friendly
Mhm.
are easy to handle. They sell out fast too.
Oh, yeah. Real fast.
It's
But, I mean, that's because the people that are wanting to get into chickens, they look for those that are easier starter chickens to work with.
Oh, I don't blame them.
And yeah, and they get, there's a lot of them, they'll sign up for a mailing list, and as soon as that email comes out that says they're taking orders, they do it
Yep.
right then. So,
And like I was talking about earlier, some breeds just don't fit well into a large scale hatchery system. They may be valuable birds, but they just aren't predictable or efficient enough to raise in volume.
right.
Uh, And honestly, for a hatchery to make money, that's what they've got to have. They've got to be able to scale that breed to where it can be profitable for them.
And sometimes that's hard to plan for. You got to figure out what goals you have, and you can't just hatch out chicks and boom, you're good. You've got to have a lot of infrastructure in place to be able to do that.
Oh, heck yeah.
So,
So I was checking real quick to see if we had any comments or questions.
I was
And
gonna
this is the truth here. The School of Crop says efficiency is key. And
mhm.
boy, are they right. Big time.
Yep, that's definitely true.
Kenny Troiano chimed in here and says, awesome, getting a good start on the year. Gosh,
Yeah, him and Sue are talking about Sue's reds are starting to lay.
yeah, she
So
just sent me a message the other day that she got her first pullet egg.
yep.
I think that was just yesterday, I think. But she has been patiently waiting. And Sue
Yes.
Dobson saved me. Those are called Derbyshire red caps, a breed I couldn't think of. It's terribly
Mhm.
old. Um, but one more point before we move on is if you're after exhibition quality chicks, you're going to run into a situation where there's just not that many of them around, particularly if you're ordering from a hatchery. Some hatcheries do have a few of some breeds. I know some hatcheries that have pretty good black Americanas. There was a hatchery for a while that had some pretty good Rhode Island Reds, but I think they've kind of deteriorated in quality. But they just don't have the time to selectively cull and breed for improvement. It's all about rapid turnovers and how fast they can meet their demand.
Yeah, there's some of the bigger shows that you go to, you'll actually see some of the larger hatcheries trying to source some exhibition stock.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, if that's what you want, you're better to go to that show and meet a friend.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hey, before we get too far, I'd like to take just 30 seconds and play our sponsor appreciation video. We'll be back and we'll get started right away. We would like to take a short break to express our appreciation to the Poultry Company for their sponsorship of the Poultry Keepers 360 Live programming. Poultry has been a trusted name in sustainable farming and poultry nutrition for decades, and their commitment to providing high-quality, natural product align perfectly with the values we hold dear in our poultry community. Thank you, Poultry, for partnering with us to empower poultry keepers everywhere. We're truly grateful for your dedication and support. And that we are big time. And we do
That New Hampshire just gets me every time.
That's a good looking bird, isn't it?
Yep.
Let's jump into hatcheries versus private breeders.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we have to take into consideration because their birds work a lot like our birds. We have some of the same problems, some of the same issues. We have some different problems and different issues. But hatcheries operate on calendars. They plan months in advance at a hatchery. They focus on consistency, shipping logistics, and volume. Pure and simple. They don't focus on individual breeding programs like a private breeder does. The breeds they offer, they got to be predictable to a certain extent. But birds from a private breeder, you expect them to be very uniform, very true to type. And by and large, for most folks, that's what you get when you're buying from a private breeder.
Yeah.
While hatcheries operate on that calendar situation, I think it would be safe to assume that private breeders operate on biology. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but we have to work around fertility, weather, hatchability, the needs of and like Carrie was talking about earlier, we have to meet the needs of our flock first before we can begin to offer chicks or eggs for sale. Greg Hampson, some of you know, he's posted Poultry Keepers 360 on a regular basis. But Craig needs a certain number, has to have us hatch a certain number of chicks, 300 to 400 chicks, to be able to cull through them and get the select few he keeps for breeders each year. And he probably keeps 15 to 20% of what he raises.
Yeah.
Where hatcheries, they don't have to worry about that.
Let's see, we have a question here.
Yes.
Sue says, what is the best way to evaluate eggs for hatching?
Well, Stu, what I like to do is I like to make sure that the egg has a good shape. I make sure it's clean. I want to make sure that they're uniform. They're not too large. They're not too small. Um, if they're supposed to be brown, I want to see a brown shelled egg.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's what I go by. And I think where a lot of people kind of miss out a little bit is that they think if one of their birds lays an egg, they need to hatch it.
Yeah.
And that's not really true.
I know for me, to help myself fight the temptation to want to hatch a pullet egg, I'll weigh them. I'll look at the egg. I'll make sure that it looks good. If it's got a lot of calcium deposits or buildup on it, I'm not a huge fan of those. I'll make sure it weighs what it should. Um, you know, that's the things that I'm looking at before I incubate it. And I've come up with those guidelines to help control myself for hatching because I mean you're right. The temptation to hatch every egg that pops out is real, especially when you have birds that don't lay a lot of eggs. Like your standard poultry, they're not gonna lay 5 eggs a week.
Right.
So, the temptation is there, but you have to fight it. You have to look at the eggs. I mean, I guess you could just hatch everything and then cull from the hatcher, but that's a waste of incubator space.
Well, not only that, but most people don't have the courage to do that. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid they're getting rid of a good bird. You were talking about egg size. My mentor, E.W. Reese, told me never hatch an egg smaller than a large. Now we're talking about large fowl Rhode Island Reds.
Right.
Um, and he said never hatch a jumbo or a really overly sized egg because they're not going to hatch well.
Yep.
And I found out that my best quality chicks were coming from eggs that were large eggs.
And I mean, that's what you told me, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
For a large fowl, that's going to be around the 57-ounce mark. I know one person asked about that. It because it is vague, but the reason that is vague is, if we want to talk about large fowl, then that's gonna. I'm looking for the 50 to 60 range. I mean 55 to 60 range. That's where
Mm-hmm.
I want to be. Anything bigger than that, I'm probably not going to try to hatch it. I'm probably going to make that an egg sandwich. If we're talking about a bantam or game fowl or something along those lines, then that weight size would be different. So that's kind of why that answer is a vague answer because it depends on what type of bird and what weight of bird you're talking about.
And, I realized you may be working with a breed that doesn't lay eggs the size that they should. And so then it's going to become a process of breeding for increased egg size.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can affect that a little bit with nutrition, but if you're getting eggs consistently undersized, I would lean more towards genetics than so much nutrition.
Yeah. Here's another good question.
What's that?
What should you look for in a hatching egg seller?
First thing I want to look for is somebody who's honest and I feel like I can trust. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you should be honest with that seller, and they should be honest with you. You need to be honest in what your expectations are, what you want the eggs for, what you're going to do with the chicks. You know, if you're just going to show them at the county fair, well, okay. But if you want to start your own flock of that particular breed or variety, then you really got to have somebody you can count on not to take advantage of you.
Yep.
And folks, remember, shipped eggs is really pretty much of a crapshoot. It's gosh, but you can turn them over to the post office in really great shape, but by the time they get to where they're supposed to be going, it can be a mess. You know, I got some eggs from Frank Reese one time, and I ordered 4 dozen eggs, and I got 16 eggs that I could put in the incubator.
Mm-hmm.
They were not cracked, but they were crushed. And it's not fair to blame the breeder for that. If you can tell that the eggs were packed with a little bit of care and like they've done it before, then that is probably not the fault of the seller, but more like the fault of the shipper.
Yeah, and you know, with the post office, technically speaking, that's the only way you're supposed to ship eggs. And I mean, it's a crapshoot. You know, you'll buy eggs from somebody. Look for somebody that uses foam that or some kind of good solid packing. You know, if they got pictures of how they package their eggs, that's good. If they're shipping them out of state, you would want to look for somebody that's NPIP certified because legally they're supposed to be. When people violate stuff like that just on shipping eggs, that should be a red flag.
Yeah.
If you're wanting high quality birds and somebody says, I have those, I can ship them tomorrow, that should be a red flag.
Yeah.
Because unless they hit the lottery with their breeding flock and they just got started, they got a list.
Yeah.
So I would be wary of the eager beaver shipper.
And let's talk about lists for a minute, Kerry, because a lot of folks don't really understand why a breeder has a waiting list. Well, a breeder operates, and we talked about this earlier, operates very differently than a hatchery. And some folks seem to have the idea they should operate the same, but they're just not set up to do that. They're really not.
I was gonna say if they want to contribute to my payroll and my infrastructure and everything else, then you know maybe they could work the same, but that's not how it works.
I would also look. Let's talk about Rhode Island Reds, for example. If you're not a member of the APA, I would join the American Poultry Association just to get the yearbook because that'll show you all the people that are pay for an ad in there that breed Rhode Island Reds. They'll be in there.
Yep, probably not going to find a scammer paying $100 for an ad.
And you can then cross-reference that with, and I hate the point system, but it's good for this. People who have achieved a master breeder or a master exhibitor award. I don't put much faith in a master exhibitor award because that's just for showing chickens. But a master breeder, I put a lot of stress on, a lot of faith in. And even if they haven't won the award, are they winning points consistently? Okay. And if you come across somebody that has a waiting list, I view that as a positive sign, and it speaks highly up of the breeder themselves, because that tells me they most likely have a good uniform flock, probably pretty good quality birds. and they're worth checking out.
You know, they have exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But because they have a waiting list, a lot of other people are looking for it too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how reputation builds when you're looking for somebody to ship you some eggs or ship you some chicks. This person says, when I tried to hatch special eggs, I saw a lot of porous bright spots when I candled.
Mm-hmm.
Zero hatch. That zero hatch could be 50 million things other than just porous bright spots.
Yeah, but I know what she's talking about because over the years, I've had a few hens
Mm-hmm.
that would lay eggs like that. And I really wanted to hatch some of them because the hens were just dynamite birds.
Yeah.
Never hatched an egg that was like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's not a
Oh no,
thing.
no. But I think it has to do with the fact the reason it's a bright spot is because it's a thin spot
Thin spot.
in the shell, and it'll actually transpire moisture out much faster than the thicker shell, more evenly. So that's just my thoughts on it. We got any, Kerry? We got any other questions?
Let's see.
I don't want to get
So
too.
good practice to weigh eggs for a few cycle to get a range for the bird and then shoot for a middle weight. Talking about weighing the eggs.
I can see some advantage into doing that. Um, it gives you a good look at egg size and egg size consistency
Mm-hmm.
over a certain number of days, whether it's a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever. And honestly, those are some of the things we should be looking at if we're looking to uh, improve the quality of production in our flock.
Yep. Like, I
Anything else?
mean, we talk about large size. Yeah, if you look at that, large size egg for a large size bird is commercially they consider it 57 grams. Well, I would hatch something between the 55 and the 60-gram range. For a bantam sized bird, that would be a medium sized egg.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be roughly 50 grams. So, it depends on. I don't know that doing that method would work because if your birds aren't laying the size eggs in the range that they should be, I think you need to know that first.
Yep.
And then make your selection based off of size. Because if you have birds that are consistently laying smaller eggs, then you may want to hatch bigger ones and only hatch the bigger ones. But then you've got a science project because you're going to have to wait 6 months to see what size that bird lays. And you got to wait till after it's a pullet egg and, it's in a mature egg. Then you have to see if they're in standard size. That could be a 2 to 5 year long project.
Easily.
Yeah.
But
I
I
mean, it's
think we
all in
need to
fun.
think more long term with our poultry than we currently do.
Yeah.
And like 5 or 10 years down the road, where do I want to be 5 to 10 years down the road? What do I need to do to my birds or with my birds to get to that point? When most
All
of
right.
us are thinking from one season to another.
I mean, and most importantly, you got to know your goals,
Mm-hmm.
long term and short term, because that's going to put every bit of it out. Joy wants to know, how would you explain the beginner to the beginning chicken tender the difference between hatchery chicken and a breeder chicken?
Joy, the way I explain that is that a breeder chicken is bred to a written standard that helps assure proper size, proper type, proper color. Hatchery birds are not. If you go through a hatchery's catalog, either the printed copy or something online, if you just scroll through there and you look at the Reds and the New Hampshires, the Rocks, um, Jersey Giants, I'll just use those for an example. What you're going to see is the only difference between those chickens is the color. They're all built pretty much alike. They all stand pretty much alike. They're all about the same size. And when there should be a wide variety, like Rhode Island Reds, the ones from the hatcheries are very square and box shaped. But in reality, Kerry, is that the case?
No.
They're very rectangular.
Mine are more rectangular, football sized.
Yeah.
Than, like a lot of the ones you get from a hatchery, they're going to be the 5-ish pound range when they're fully grown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get a standard bird, you're going to be closer to the 6.5 pound range.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like it's a pound and a half, but that pound and a half is what the standard says, and it makes a big difference.
I used to be the show superintendent at the Florida State Fair Poultry Show. And I always enjoyed watching people as they would come through the barn because they would see a hatchery Rhode Island Red, and that's what most folks are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would look at a standard quality or bred to standard Rhode Island Red, and they couldn't believe the difference.
Right. Well, like if people look at the picture over our shoulders, we both have pictures of hatchery Reds over our shoulder. There are some variation, whether it be a sex link or whatever, but that's what you're going to get if you order a Red.
Yep.
Something in that range. If you go to a breeder that breeds to a standard, you're going to get something that's a lot more a mahogany color, rich, vibrant red, very uniform.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different look.
I used to have people that would stop by here and they would see my Reds out in the backyard and they would ask me, what are those black chickens? I said, well, they're really not black. I said, come on, let's go take a look at them. They said, I have never seen chickens that look like that.
Yeah. I mean, when I first got some of the same birds that you have, I was in shock because that was way different than what I had ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I mean, I had looked all over the state and I had the best I could get started with, but I was still 6-8 years away from what I needed. So it plays a big role.
And Kerry, I think you're a poster child for this, but if you want good birds, sometimes you have to be patient.
And that is the struggle.
And a lot of folks are like me. I am not the most patient person in the state here in Florida. Trust me, not even close. But how long were you looking for good Reds before you finally got them?
several years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when we met, it was over Reds, and you nicely told me that if I wanted a an evaluation and a comparison of what I had would go great in the noodles. And I was like, well, dang. And then I saw what I was looking for, and I was like, holy cow,
Yeah, big difference.
big difference. So, you know, then I was like, yeah, that's why am I feeding these? And then it was, well, that's the best I have. And I started working on that. And then I was able to connect with somebody that really had some great ones. So
But Kerry, and this is where a lot of folks don't stop to think about it. In doing that, in having quote unquote reds, and then finally finding some real reds, but you were learning a lot about poultry management, poultry nutrition, which really served you in good stead when you finally got some good reds, because you were a few years ahead of some folks who had not gone through that sort of training period.
oh, I mean, I didn't have a clue how to take care of them if I did have them. I needed to learn that,
Yeah,
you know, because that's very, very important. Let's see.
absolutely.
So people can see what you have over your shoulder as being a hatchery bird. That is more what you're going to get, and that's a young bird right there. But that's more what you're going to get from a breeder that breeds to a standard. And that's probably not my best representation. So,
And before we move off from the waiting list thing, I just want to add a couple of things. If you run up against somebody that has a waiting list, it's not because they're trying to be unfriendly. It's not because they're overly selective about who gets their birds. It's because it's the quality of their birds. It's about being responsible for those birds or to those birds. And don't, and you know, there's some breeders I know that's got a waiting list 2, 3, 4 years long,
mm-hmm.
not months, years. And if you want some of their birds, you just have to be patient.
Kenny says hatchery birds are not true to standard, but
Nope.
not all breeders are created equal. That's extremely true.
Amen to that,
There's
Kenny.
some good breeders and there's some very bad breeders. Do your homework, do your research. I agree 120% because there's some that I don't even know if the glorified peddler would be an accurate term.
You know,
And there's others that they'll just flat out tell you, I don't have anything. I did not have a good year.
yeah,
And I'm not because they won't sell a cull.
absolutely. Um, and you got to respect people like that. Um, and going back to what Kenny said, it has been my pleasure to know some of the finest breeders in this country over the years. They they put incredible amounts of time studying and learning about their breed, the breeding tendencies, poultry management, poultry nutrition, everything. They paid incredible attention to the most minute details. Now, I have also known my fair share of breeders who were pretty much clueless about what to do and what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you got to watch out because some of those folks are out there peddling eggs or peddling chicks. and you can get taken advantage of. I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose. They're probably just doing it out of ignorance sometimes.
But like Joy said, Joy did her homework for a year to find a good breeder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to be a student of your craft. And what I mean by that is if you want black astrolarbs, like one person said, that's great. You need to learn everything you can about that bird. You need to learn what it should look like, what the standard says it should look like, how much it should weigh, what its egg should be, because that's all in the book. And once you learn that, it will help you identify a peddler a lot faster.
Let me say one thing about the standard, the book as we refer to it a lot.
Yeah.
It is a book that will tell you what the bird is supposed to look like.
Right.
It is not a book that will tell you what birds to put together to breed to get the birds that should look like that. So that's where a lot of folks get frustrated with the standard perfection. And I totally get it because I went through all that myself too.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned this 2 or 3 times already tonight. But when you're shopping for birds, planning well in advance is necessary to get the quality genetics you're after. If you're after good quality genetics, it takes patience, it takes planning, and you better be able to persevere.
Yeah. Let's see. Joy also says everybody thought she was nuts to drive 4 hours to get chicks, but she has a positive merit flock. So she wanted to find somebody that had the birds that she wanted and vaccinate them. And she wanted them vaccinated correctly, not with a box. So she wanted it done by hand to make sure it was done precise. I had a person drive from Missouri to me to buy chicks. I offered to ship, but he was like, nope, I've been looking for this for a very long time. I'll come get them. And he did. He drove down. We talked for about an hour or two. He hopped in his truck and went back home.
Yeah,
So
I have driven long ways to get rid sometimes. Long ways.
speaking of Rip, I've got something I need to show you before we run out of time.
What's that?
Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good looking red.
That's an exceptional bird. He's got good depth of body from the front all the way back through the tail. Okay. Another thing I like about him, he doesn't have too much tail on him. So many reds today, the darn tail is as long as the back on the bird.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not right. I mean, you're paying for feathers. You can't eat feathers.
Nope.
But that is I think I know what bird that is.
You would.
Well,
it might be named after you.
I think it probably is. I found out she's done that again now. So
let's see. And Joy brings it up. It's no different than people driving a long distance to get a puppy.
No, not at all.
And Sue has a great idea. Build more coops.
That's what she did.
Yeah.
Oh, me.
So
poultry people are some of the best folks I know. Absolutely some of the best, bar none.
So tell me this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when your chosen breed is sold out?
Well, It goes back to being patient. I think probably, let me answer that first by saying what you don't want to do is to settle for something less. All right.
That's right.
You get a, gosh, I hate Tractor Supply because you can go in there and you can find, I don't know, 7 or 8 different breeds of birds. And that encourages, and you may have gone in there for white leghorns and they got everything but white leghorns. Well, you've got the hots to have chicks. So you come home with a bunch of
and Lord forbid
Easter
them
eggs.
be on sale for $2.99.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I have seen people literally post boxes of chicks where they went there, they were on sale for $2.99, and they got like 40 or 50 chicks, all kinds of different ones slapped in the box together. And I'm just like, good luck. You have fun.
Yeah.
If all you want is yard candy and eggs, that's perfect.
Absolutely.
You know, paying $2.99 for a chick, you might actually come out ahead by the time it lays an egg in a few months. But not any other way.
To get back and finish answering your questions, Kerry, what should you do when they're sold out? If it's a breed that truly fits your long-term goals, lays the color egg you want, it's a good dual-purpose bird. Whatever it is, it's matched to your climate perfectly. Then, if you can wait, you're going to save yourself years of frustration compared to settling for the wrong breed. I've been down that road before and it stinks.
Well, I mean, if you've got your heart set, and we use reds a lot because we're both partial to those. But if you got your heart set on reds, don't settle for a New Hampshire. Yes, they're close. They're similar in color, similar in stance. They lay eggs and they taste like chicken. But if you want a Rhode Island red, don't settle for a New Hampshire. Wait. Fight the urge.
And if you just absolutely cannot fight the urge to not substitute, you want to make sure you match the purpose of the egg color, the body size, the temperament, the climate, or maybe even just the appearance or availability of what's out there. So you're getting something may not be exactly what you want, but it's a little bit closer.
See, for me, I wouldn't. I would get something polar opposite. That
And
way, when I do finally get what I want,
you got
I
a good
will
excuse to get rid
never.
of them.
Yeah, I will never confuse them. Like if I wanted some really good reds, but I also wanted some chickens, I would. If I could not get really good reds, I'd get something that was white. That way, you will never ever confuse the two and wonder. And when you do finally get your reds, you will have a lot of chicken salad.
A valid point. A valid point. Kerry, we're getting down here close to the close of the show, but do we have any more questions or comments that we need to bring up and help folks with?
One person says, how long should a breeder put into a flock before they sell eggs?
It's like so many other questions I get in poultry is it depends. You know, what's the quality of the birds you started with? Okay. If they're good, high quality birds and they're reproducing and they're consistently, and the birds are coming out consistent one to another couple of 3 years. But if they're not consistent, the type is all over the place, the color's all over the place, 5, 6, 7, 8 years maybe.
Yeah,
So it just
they should
doesn't
wait
add.
until it is right.
Absolutely. Because if you don't wait till they're right, the only thing you're really doing in the long run, yeah, you may be making a sale, but you're also damaging your reputation in the poultry community.
Mm-hmm. And the breed.
Yep.
Because if you just hatch out a bunch of chicks and you know they're not consistent and you sell them to somebody, they're not going to have the heart to cull a chick they just paid money for, even though they should.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's see. I searched for some time before I found barn Belvederes.
Barnavelders.
Yeah, those. And
They're beautiful
that's
birds.
you. My granddaddy used to always say, "Good things come to those who wait." And
Absolutely.
when it comes to poultry genetics, that can't be more true than anything else. It's
Exactly.
so true.
Exactly. Just as we get ready to wrap this up here, I want to leave folks with this. Remember, sooner or later, you're going to come across an issue where your supplier is sold out. Don't take it personally. It's just part of the system and the way the whole thing works. Hopefully you've got a better feeling now for how the system works. So hopefully sellouts won't feel random or personal to you, because it's manageable in the long scheme of things. And and I don't know how many times we've mentioned this tonight, Kerry, but planning in advance is going to restore your control as a poultry keeper. If you don't plan in advance, you're
not even planning.
No, exactly. And good poultry keeping is not rushed. It's intentional, it's patient, and it's planned.
Rip, that reminds me, you and I had been friends for about a year, and you dropped a piece of knowledge on me about colon. And I said, why did you not tell me that a year ago? That is such valuable information. And you told me I wasn't ready.
That's right.
And when I thought about it, you're right. I wasn't ready for that because I probably wouldn't have done it. So
You'd have probably said that crazy old man down there in Florida is a lunatic.
but now it's an extremely valuable lesson. And, I wouldn't have listened a year ago, but at the time you did tell me, that has been one of the hugest things that I look at in every single bird. It's the first thing. And, that's one of the sad things that people don't have the strength or internal fortitude or whatever, but culling is probably one of the most important aspects of any breeding program out there.
And it's one of the things that most people struggle with more than anything else about breeding chickens.
I used to.
I think.
Now I need them things to convince me why I need to keep feeding them. I have too many friends with reptiles that'll take the little ones that are frozen. And I have too many people that like chicken. If they wind up, let me let this one grow a little bit to see what it looks like.
Yep.
Crockpot.
There you go. Well, folks, we are certainly glad you joined us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a few laughs and a few jokes along the way, but I want to leave you with this one final thought. If you enjoy thoughtful, experience-based poultry information, that's what this group is all about. Don't forget that.